Drama behind the big, beautiful bill threatening a relationship between the president and Elon Musk. What does this mean for Tesla stock? We'll discuss that. We have the Worldwide Developer Conference starting next week for Apple. Is there really any buzz about it? Can Apple recover? We'll look at it technically as well. We had Broadcom earnings wrapping up semiconductors. What does that mean? And can Nvidia power to all-time highs? We'll discuss that and more on today's show. What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are doing well out there. Let's kick things off like we always do with Meta Platform. Start of the week at 659. This one got a little bit of a rocket boost, up nearly 6% to finish the week at 698. This is after Meta signed a deal with an energy company. Constellation Energy is going to supply nuclear power to the company starting in June of 2027, and they essentially get an operating lease for 20 years on this bad boy. So I saw other details saying that Meta's deal to get this energy is actually at a pretty darn good price. This is probably why Constellation Energy shares popped and then kind of sold off, because the Wall Street realizing that they gave a pretty good deal to Meta. Now, the company is planning to fully automate making ads in the back end. So obviously, Meta, as most of you view the company, is a social media platform. No, it's an online advertiser. The most important product is the self-serving advertising model on the back end. Now, AI is already helping advertisers in a major way, developing different types of keywords, developing copy, developing images, and all those types of things. So it's not that advertisers already using AI. It's that Meta will integrate it into the back end, could make it definitely easier for somebody that doesn't have an advertising background or is just starting out, will get them over the hump. Does this mean the end of online advertising agencies? If you scroll Instagram and this is something that you interact with, you'll get dozens and dozens of ads of these companies that'll run your Meta ads for you, set up the creatives. Is this mean the end of that? Probably not. But this could mean more money for Meta as people get into advertising more and more as it becomes easier with AI. Now, the company is reaching out to top Hollywood studio executives, offering millions of dollars for exclusive content for its Oculus glasses. This could be a way to boost sales and boost interest in a device which is pretty much niche. Now, Trump is expected to extend the TikTok ban again. June 19th is the official date where TikTok was expected to be divested into a United States company, or, essentially taken away from Chinese ownership. Obviously, the two sides are working out a trade deal. It looks like rumors that the two sides will meet on Monday. My guess is this TikTok deal is mixed into the negotiations as well. And until you have clarity on the trade deal, well, you probably don't have clarity on this. We'll see what happens. Trump continuing to extend the ban, but I don't think he can fully lift it. This is something that will likely happen at some point. Who knows when that will happen? But because this is signed and written law, it's not that like Trump can just make this law go away like executive orders, for example. Now, moving on to Apple. Start of the week at 201. Boom, up 1.4%. You want to see this one technically at the end of the show. Apple finished the week at 204. Again, heading into Worldwide Developer Conference, where there's basically no buzz around a new device, which is probably good considering the last device that they put out at the Worldwide Developer Conference, those $4,000 ski goggles, those basically nobody is buying those and nobody's even using those. How they will integrate AI, that will become a big story. Can it open up opportunities for the company? Also, on the docket will be the fact that you had a ruling in a court denying Apple's request to pause a court order that causes game makers, or allows game makers and anybody with an app on the App Store, to allow a separate payment portal. In the past, as most of you know, you had to go to Apple, and when you checked out, Apple collect 30 cents of every single dollar, which is a complete ripoff. And I'm glad to see that Apple has to share the ecosystem a little bit. I think as consumers, it's better for you. Now, as an Apple shareholder, do I want them to continue to collect 30 cents on every dollar? Hell yeah, I'd love them to collect 90 cents on every dollar, but it's just simply not fair. And so we'll see what happens. Obviously, the company is going to continue to try to work this through the court process, but right now they don't have a stay on this judgment, which means this is in effect. And many analysts believe that the EPS might take a 2 to 3% hit after that injunction was held up. That is because Apple can start the appeal process, but that is going to take weeks and weeks and months. And maybe by the time they get around that, all these game developers and all these app makers have already worked around it. What Apple is going to have to do is lower their prices. Instead of taking 30 cents on every dollar, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 10 cents of every dollar. Maybe it's a tiered system where over $1 million, over $100 million, or whatever it happens to be, maybe you start taking less. It's a sliding scale. There's going to be plenty of developers that are still going to want to use Apple's ecosystem rather than plugging in Stripe or some other payment platform. So Apple's going to have to work with this. It's going to take not months, not quarters. It's going to take a few years for them to recover from this financially, but I think eventually they will because they have the distribution and they have the hardware. Now, one way that they might recover a little bit is continuing to get exclusive content for their Apple TV. It is believed that the MLB package could be up. First of all, it is up for grabs. After the 2025 season, ESPN, which has held a long-standing relationship, I think since like maybe the 1980s or so, ESPN has been airing MLB games. They've decided to step aside as the payments get a little bit lofty for that. NBC is expected to come in, potentially bid for that, but Apple is paying just $85 million a season to air MLB games on Friday. $85 million to Apple is like $85 to you and I. So they're looking at this as probably pretty positive ROI. Could they get the entire package like they've gotten, I think, with MLS and I think they have other rights as well? We'll see what happens there moving into sports in a major way. Now, they are going to potentially launch AI features in China, but that is also being held up by the trade war. We had word on, at least today, that on the 9th, which is just a couple of days from now, representatives from the United States and China are set to meet. And this is how China prefers to negotiate. Donald Trump wants to call President Xi up on the phone and scratch something out on paper and then say, hey, it's all good. That is not how China wants to operate. They want all the delegations to meet the lower end people. Obviously, if you're in government, especially high up in China, you're probably doing pretty darn good. Same thing is true here in the United States. China wants those people to kind of hash it out, come to an agreement, and then President Xi, while they continue to have conversations, sound like they had a phone call this week, which is probably a good thing. Those two guys will meet in China, in the United States, or somewhere in a neutral site and sign a deal, and they'll clap hands and have dinner. Held up among that is obviously the TikTok, the tariffs. I mean, there's semiconductors. There's so many things riding on this. And one of those things is the AI features that Apple could potentially launch on their phones inside of the domestic area of China. And we'll see what happens there. A lot riding on those discussions. We'll see how they go. Moving on to Amazon. Start of the week at 206. This one's catching a bid. Heard people pumping this on CNBC. Up 3.6%. All-time highs, 242 technically. They look like they're in play. Finished the week at 213 and some change on Amazon. Hallelujah. They are setting to test AI-powered humanoid robots for delivery. This is what we've been waiting for with Amazon for so long. And some of you guys, I get less of the comments now, but in the past, this was like 3 or 4 years ago before humanoid robots and robotics was like really a thing. I was like, eventually Amazon is going to replace, their 2 million employees or 1 million employees. They're going to replace either all of them or a percentage of them with robots. And then I had a bunch of little babies in the comments cry about a minimum age work, which is not the American dream, which is back-breaking work. And it's really just an entry-level job. Here are the stats because I've actually looked into that. If Amazon was not actively recruiting for jobs for deliveries and the warehouse within 2 years in most sites, everybody will have quit. So this is not a great job. They actually need these robots. It's not that they kind of want them. They need these robots. And so they're setting up a test facility out here in the great state of California and potentially, these get out in the real world. I guess we're a few years away here, but that's very exciting, particularly from a margin perspective when Amazon generates hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue. If you can start saving even a couple of percentage points, that's huge for you, the shareholder. Now, they continue to reinvest their money and their profits and their revenue inside of these data centers as they announced a $10 billion data center project in the great state of North Carolina. Now, they are cutting and this is happening across the industry. They are slashing prices for Amazon Nvidia GPU accelerated instance. Some people, the uninitiated, the idiots out there, they're going to look at this headline and they're going to be like, oh, well, the AI race is over and nobody wants Nvidia chips anymore. They're dropping the price. That's not what this means, okay? The Hopper is the previous generation of Nvidia chip. That is, as most of you know, being phased out by the Blackwell chip. I'll have a story when we get to Nvidia. The fact that the Blackwell is like, and I don't know what great analogy to draw here, but basically those of you that are old as me and you had a flip phone or you had one of those brick phones, it's like going from that phone to the iPhone. Those of you that remember getting your very first iPhone, it's like, blasting off in outer space. It was unbelievable. Okay, the kids these days, this is the stuff that they're used to. But at one time, we used to have to dial into the internet and it would take 18 minutes just to log into the internet. Okay, it's like going from that to like DSL internet. That is the progression. We're going from Hopper to Blackwell. So of course they have to slash the prices on these things because everybody wants to use Blackwell. This is also why AMD, I wrote an article about this on the free newsletter. The fact that AMD missed a release window. They have a product now that is competitive with Hopper. They don't have a product in the marketplace that is competitive with Blackwell. That's a problem because they're slashing prices on Hopper. Nobody wants to use it. It'll still continue to be used in an infra state, but it's going to be at a much lower cost because Blackwell, as you'll see when I get to a story here in a moment, is way more advanced. Now, Amazon Pharmacy, they expanded PillPack to feature those on Medicare. I got to imagine that's pretty good because you have 50 million Americans on some kind of Medicare Part D, and you have the government paying for your pills. Well, now Amazon will deliver for you. That's probably a pretty darn good business at some point. Now, moving on to Netflix. Start of the week at $1,211. And I was talking to my sons today, and I was like, guys, you guys bought Netflix, and it literally hasn't gone down. Up over 2.5% this week, made a fresh 52-week high. Finished the week at $12.42. There's nothing slowing down Netflix. Moving on to Nvidia. Start of the week at 137, drifted lower, and then boom, up higher, up 3%. Finished the week at 141. Are we going to get to 153 by the end of June? Those are the all-time highs with Nvidia. We'll look at that technically here in a moment. CoreWeave. They're right. I mean, CoreWeave stock. Have you guys seen CoreWeave stock? I mean, my God, I actually break my neck looking at this chart because it's like, whoa, it's straight up in the air. And this is because the company obviously has a deep, close relationship with Nvidia. They also have some technical knowledge here, at least getting these servers off the ground. By Q3, Q4, everybody will have kind of caught pace with them. But right now, they are leading the way, deploying these Grace Blackwell chips, popping out the largest cluster of GPUs in the Blackwell family ever. And what they are finding is that these things are we're talking 34 times larger. We're running the largest foundation models out there, open source foundation models. These things are churning through the GPUs in 27 minutes. These were things that would take weeks, months. I mean, we are compressing time. And so the more Blackwell systems that get out there, the more exciting hardware, software, everything that is going to be developed. This is also the backbone for robotics. So the AI race we're just starting, folks. Well, look, some of you might want to sit back and relax this weekend. And I tell you what, you've got a highly anticipated Nintendo Switch 2 launched today. Major retailers quickly selling out, lines out the door. I'm not really a video game player or a Nintendo player, but Nvidia's got a chip in here. Now, it's believed that they'll sell over 150 million units to MUSK. If this was AMD providing the graphics chips to this, AMD stock probably be doing pretty darn good. Nvidia will make a couple of dollars off of this, but compared to their AI business, it's nothing. Okay. Now, Broadcom also reported earnings this week over on the Equity Empire channel. I did a live stream last night, talked about, Broadcom for the first hour or so, discussed the earnings, discussed the conference call. Very interesting. Obviously, there was a lot of drama at the current time going on with the president, Elon Musk, sucking up a lot of the air inside of the room. But boy, you had a lot of news being made on this Broadcom call. Also basically reinforcing everything that we know about AI and semiconductors is that if you're in a leading position like Nvidia, and you have a leading edge product that is at least 6 months to a year ahead of the competition, you are going to be doing great. Broadcom also in a leading position as well. Also with networking, they have a market leading product is there. And look, they have a software business that is growing at 25% and has 93% gross margins. Broadcom doing absolutely fantastic. Small pullback in the shares, but those should be bought at certain times. And moving on to Google. Start of the week in 169. Woo, up 2.3%. Finished the week at almost 174. Now, Google's got their own court cases. And what's really interesting about this court case is they're almost debating and litigating something that is no longer going to be the case. And so this is what's interesting about Google is obviously we're talking about their search dominance, and the Department of Justice have brought a case against them basically saying they're a search monopoly and they've got to sell Chrome, or they got to share their data. They can't buy default search engines on Apple and all this type of this stuff. And this is like a 2000 to 2020 view of the world. Since then, obviously, we've had AI. So this is what's cool about this case. And I've developed this thesis through talking with lawyers and reading their opinions, is they believe that if this opinion goes negatively for Google, and when the government brings a case, they tend to win at least a portion of that. Well, Google obviously will be able to appeal. Okay, so whatever ruling comes down for Google, they're going to be able to stretch this out for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Will be very interesting, and I have some stories to support this, is in 2 or 3 years from now, Google's position, whether it's browser, whether it's search, whether it's online ads, it's going to continue to evolve. And so any ruling that you have today, which again applies to the internet before AI, could get changed. And so Google probably has time on their side here, no matter what happens with that. Now, Perplexity, which is a very popular app, kind of a search engine AI kind of hybrid, they're seeing extreme growth, the CEO says, and that people are, quote, tired of legacy browsers. This would be your Safari, your Chromes, your Microsoft Edge, I think. I'm not a Microsoft guy, but they're saying they're tired of them. Obviously, those browsers will continue to evolve and adopt anything that Perplexity finds popular. But I tell you what, you do have a new gateway into the internet. It used to be obviously through, well, at one time, you're old as me, you remember like portals, you know what I mean? Or you remember listservs and those types of things. So most of you aren't that old. Then obviously the search engine was the gateway. And almost make maybe your email inbox as well was kind of the gateway into the internet. Now, a decent amount of people are starting to adopt these AI forward apps, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Grok, obviously social media as well. Kind of more of your gateway into the internet, your gateway into discovery. This is just another way to search and find things on the internet. And again, very, very exciting. Very exciting for all companies involved, including if you're into online advertising. It probably opens up a lot of opportunities. Now, the company continues to push forward with Gemini, which is their AI service with 2.5 Pro. Most of the feedback that I see on this is absolutely fantastic. It's just that Google's having trouble kind of cutting through the noise of all the other AI applications. CEO Sundar Pichai says he's eyeing engineering talent and AI advances. I also wrote about this on the Substack. There'll be a link down to that below. Free Substack. And I talk about how you inside of the big, beautiful bill, which at the time of writing this was like 4 days ago, seemed like a formality that was going to get passed. You know, these things in Washington, you know, watching them pass these bills, it's like watching sausage get made or, you know, watching the butcher in the back. It's kind of ugly. And you just want to see kind of the final product. And so inside of this, quote, big, beautiful bill, before Elon Musk really, tried to kill it, there's a great tax benefit for AI software or really any kind of software development. It allows these companies to expense that in year one by 100% and allows it to go for 4 years. In the past, if you spend $1 million on software development, I think you're only able to expense it over 5 years. So you're only be able to do 25% a year or so. This is fantastic for Google. It's fantastic for every company that we talk about on this show. It's even more fantastic for the software companies that build software and custom software for other companies. Moving on to Microsoft. Start of the week at 460, and that was resistance. And once we got over it, it didn't hesitate and blasted all the way up to 470. We'll look at this one technically. Pullbacks in Microsoft should be bought, but we were up 2% this week. OpenAI surpassing 3 million paying business subscribers. These are probably people accessing the API. They also have kind of an upper tier subscription, which I think starts at maybe $200 a month, maybe goes as high as $2,000 a month. They got 3 million of those bad boys paying, and it looks like all systems go for OpenAI. They continue to change their relationship with Microsoft as both companies continuing to see the benefit of working together, but also separately as well. OpenAI obviously signing that kind of device deal or that device agreement with Johnny Ive potentially could compete with some of Microsoft's stuff. Microsoft continuing to develop and train their own models for their own Copilot and other products, as well as they don't want to seem overly reliant on OpenAI. Also, from a data center perspective, OpenAI partnering not just with Azure, but with Oracle in particular as well. Moving on to Tesla. Start of the week at 346. And things turned very, very ugly on the X social media site this week. And the relationship with President Donald Trump and Elon Musk took a turn for the worse, and it took Tesla in reverse as well, down 15%. Although bounced back a little bit today, finished the week at 295. Shares slid by 14%. I don't have the tweets up. There was some stuff about the big, beautiful bill. There was some stuff about an island and, some nefarious activity, to say the least. I mean, my gosh, this thing soured faster than like maybe a banana out in the sunlight. I mean, this was an absolute abomination. Now, some people might say, well, wait a second, that there were Democrats out there applauding Elon Musk. We haven't seen that in like 6 months. People were out there applauding him and happy and like agreeing with him. And so maybe in some ways this alienates, I don't know if that's a term or if that's like an accurate way to say this, but maybe this de-alienates Elon Musk to a certain degree with parts of the community out there that have like political mind. Washington, D.C. like lives inside of their head, and President Trump occupies a part of their brain as well. Most people refer to it as like Trump derangement syndrome or Elon derangement syndromes. Maybe those people, this is maybe part of the cure. The fact that Elon is now beefing with President Trump, beefing with members of Congress. We'll see what happens. His tweets, at least at the time of recording, had toned down just a little bit. One thing, I sent this note out to premium subscribers at Equity Empire. I sent this note to them this morning. I was like, Trump, if this was 2016, 2017, 2018, 2020 Trump, like he would have went ballistic on Elon Musk. Like this thing would have gotten even uglier, even faster. President Trump, he's older for one, but I also think he's a little bit more experienced from a political perspective. And I think he's got people around him, primarily his chief of staff, that knows how to just let him get some stuff out, but also rein him in. He's like, again, this will surprise many of you, and most of you that have Trump derangement syndrome, you won't believe this, and this is not something your brain can comprehend. But President Trump, at least at the time of recording, is being mildly more mature than he normally would be in this situation. And I think that's a good thing for President Trump. I also think it's a good thing for Elon Musk because they're both cut out of the same cloth. They'll both just keep going. It's like two little brothers. Just, eventually somebody's going to get knocked out. The fact that Trump kind of walked away from the situation in a Trump kind of way, I think actually might benefit both of them. This is as China EV made sales continue to drop, 15% decline year over year. This is why other models and other, participants inside of that market continue to see good sales. Tesla certainly has an EV problem. And part of this discussion about the big beautiful bill or whatever is it strips away $7,500 EV credits on Tesla made cars. If you go to Tesla.com and you bring up their website and you're looking at the cars on here, all the prices on here include a $7,500 taxpayer subsidy. And on top of that, the company is subsidizing the financing. There's nobody with 0% APR right now with the 10-year at 5% or whatever it is. There's no bank that is borrowing money this cheap. And so this is being subsidized on two ends. Tesla cannot absorb the $7,500 tax credit. These prices of these cars, which I showed you news reports, are not really selling that well. The price is going to have to go up. This is China, different subsidies. But here in America, these things are not selling. And if you strip away that $7,500 tax credit, which is actually not a tax credit, it's an instant rebate on the car. Well, yeah, they're going to struggle to sell these cars even more. This after Elon Musk is seeking $5 billion of debt financing for his XAI company, and they are planning $300 million of share sales to allow for some new investors. But XAI expected to generate $13 billion in annual earnings, which would put it into a pretty top tier software company by 2029. Obviously, a lot of things can change in the AI market. Pricing, what the Mag 7 does with pricing on these types of things, how you can monetize this through advertising, all of those are questions. But at least at the current time, XAI humming right along. Speaking of humming right along, look at the S&P 500. After those April lows, whoop, you've made it all the way back up through the middle of the channel. You're hunting the all-time highs. A retest of 6,200 seems inevitable. You retest that, you're looking for pullbacks, you're looking to buy. Now, Meta doesn't report earnings for 47 days, and we're close to the all-time highs on this one, up at 740. I mean, you are a stone throws away, making a new higher high on Meta. Seems almost inevitable. Pullbacks on that one should be bought. Apple is at the bottom of a 5-year channel. They have the Worldwide Developer Conference next week, where the expectations are on the floor. Typically, the expectations are a little bit higher. There's a little bit more buzz. This is going to allow Apple to impress. If they do, so I'm not saying that they will, but I'm saying this allows them to potentially impress, because the expectations around the Worldwide Developer Conference are basically nothing. Okay. And so if they impress, if they have something new, I don't think they will, but if they do have something new, or if things look, and Apple does a great job, this is like goes without saying, they do a great job with their presentations. Apple sitting at this level looks pretty darn good to me. Amazon just confirmed a new higher low. Looks like it wants to come all the way up here, retest the higher highs at 245. Pullbacks in Amazon, particularly back to this 191 area. That's when you start accumulating. Netflix. My sons bought this one, and I was like, guys, it's at the top of a technical channel, and you really should look at that. And they're like, no, Dad, Netflix, everybody watches that shit. I'm going to watch it too. I'm going to buy the stock. And they were right. This thing has just continued to rally since then. Pullbacks in Netflix. I mean, there's no other thing to do other than buy that one. Nvidia chart looks a little bit different, at least in kind of the micro trend, the year-long trend. You want to stretch this out. It still looks absolutely fantastic. We've been going sideways on this one. You want to come up here. We'll show this to you when we get to Microsoft as well. You want to come up here, blast above the all-time highs, which are up at, 150-ish for the stock. You're going to blast the highs. You're going to make a back test. You're going to want to buy the back test. Some of you might be, well, why don't I just buy it right now? Well, if the technical pattern plays out, you are going to get rejected here. Retest 115, maybe even areas lower than that. Obviously, you want to buy it at that point too. Google also looking very beautiful in a longer term uptrend here. I mean, this uptrend is still intact. You're sitting right at the middle of the channel. You can accumulate shares of a company when it's in the middle of the channel. You see in the past that it can continue to kind of churn in the middle, basically kind of in the middle of euphoria and despair with Google. That's basically where you are. Some of that DOJ lawsuit, I think, obviously gets sorted out not until August. And so you don't really have a lot of decision day as it relates to their court case. But we saw with Apple, it certainly negatively impacted the stock, but it's not necessarily devastating. Certainly not devastating is Microsoft peaking above the all-time high. So we've just confirmed a new higher high on this one. So, I mean, this is exactly what you want your stocks to do if you're already in Microsoft, okay? If you're not in Microsoft, now you're waiting for two things. You could play the momentum trade. It's not a trade that I recommend here on the channel or to subscribers, because you have to be pretty active on this one, and because you have a high probability of breaking to the upside and then coming back, giving it all back and back testing. So you can either buy Microsoft on the back test to 470, wouldn't back up the truck at that level, but it is a level since you just created a new higher high. The other thing to do is wait for further pullbacks. The really go zone here is back down to about 405. Tesla, everybody was panicking. Oh my gosh, Tesla, what is going on? People were crying on social media. I mean, the technical pattern is there's nothing concerning about this technical pattern. Making a beautiful series of higher highs, higher lows. You've been doing that for, 2 years now. Now, I know broadly, You stretch it out to like 5 years, you're basically sideways. But if you want to stretch it out with Tesla, put it on a monthly view, the stock has done this a number of different times where it basically goes sideways to kind of trending up, and then you have this big gap up moment. Then it goes sideways for a long time, and then it has a gap up, and then you go sideways for a long time. And then what you're hoping with Tesla, if you're long the shares, is you're hoping that the next gap up is potentially the robotaxi. The robotaxi is not going to gap it up immediately, but you're hoping the rollout next week in Austin, Texas, I believe it's next week, they're only going to have 10 vehicles, and we're talking about a $1 trillion company, okay? I could have a robotaxi fleet larger than that if I could get it past regulators. So it's not going to move the needle financially. It will move the needle a big time from a news coverage perspective. Obviously, we hope that it goes without any incidents because there are real people, real families, real humans inside of these cars. There are some sick people that are hoping that it goes bad, but just remember, there are real people in these cars. So we don't want it to go bad. And for humanity's sake, you actually want these cars to be safer than humans. We've all probably tragically, we've all known somebody that's passed away in a car accident. And if robots and autonomous software can solve that, that'd be freaking great. This one, if it retests the lows back down here at 240, that should be bought. There's areas at 208. You wouldn't want to break through those lows. That probably wouldn't be great, although you do have support at 160 and then lower. We'll see what happens with Tesla. If you can't stomach losses, you definitely want a stop loss at 210 on this one. You wouldn't want to break through that. But overall, technically looks pretty good despite the drama between Mr. Musk and President Trump. Folks, that was the FAANG Stock Recap Show for Friday, June 6th. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, stay cool, enjoy yourself. If you're like me, you got your kids home for the summertime, press that pause button and relax and hang out with them. Time goes by really fast, and you want to spend as much time with them as possible. Folks, that was the show for today. We'll see you again next week. Good luck with your investments.